skiff, we have a conundrum.
I don't get the. Well, I will say that in college when I started drinking, one day, I can't remember what it was in response to. It was probably after I had gone to the hospital for alcohol poisoning, as one does.
Okay.
In college, especially when you're rushing a fraternity, as I was, and my dad just texted me. I stopped drinking because when I was 23, or I don't remember the age, I woke up and had the shakes. And it was now I know that was the most loving way he could say, maybe you should stop doing this. but it was sort
in
of
his own way.
It was out of context. I remember I got it at a party and I was like, whatever. So I've never had that. And
Wait, when did you start drinking? Like, how old were you?
I was 17. So I didn't drink in high school, but I started drinking the summer before college.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 17, drinking for you is mine nicotine. Like, that's when smoking was introduced into my life.
Yeah.
Was around the same time. And you can see how it's an issue for me with nicotine.
Right.
And I'm telling you, like, alcohol is not an issue because I started drinking alcohol when I was 28 or 27.
Oh, yeah.
That was way at the end.
How old are you now?
I'm
at the end of your life?
39,
28,
yes.
27?
Yeah, it was like way at the end.
Yeah.
When it was coming to a final.
Yeah, I think that's why I've never smoked a cigarette, because I know that if I did, I would likely get pretty addicted to them. Okay. But yeah, I did dry January this year, and that's probably the longest I've gone without drinking. And it's not hard. It's a little bit annoying when I'm like, I am not going to drink today. And then I'm like, I would really like, something's annoying me. It would be nice to have a drink, but I always feel so much I will regularly be like, man, I feel great today. Why do I feel so great? And then I realize, it's because I didn't drink yesterday.
Let's go ruin it.
Yeah.
Is my next thought.
What?
Is like, I feel so good today. It's because I haven't drink. Look at all the energy I have. Let's go drink. Like that, it's almost the feeling of I'm feeling great. I can't sit in it for too long. I have to drown it with either alcohol or weed, nicotine, food, sugar, whatever.
Yeah.
But like me feeling good is a celebration to doing bad things to put me back into the cycle and repeat.
I think I used to have that, and now I'm more like, this isn't going to last forever. It probably won't last for the rest of the day.
The good feeling?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just enjoy it while it is here. Do whatever you actually want to do with it. And, if that means going and having a drink, that means going and having a drink. If that means getting some work done, that means getting some work done, or going for a run or whatever. So I've gotten better at not getting in my own way when I'm feeling good about things.
Ooh, what do you mean?
The way that what you were just describing, I think I used to be more towards that. Like, if I was feeling good, then I would immediately say, but obviously, it's all going to go away soon. Or I have gotten much better at just like enjoying when things feel good.
It's not coming from a place of let's ruin it. I said it in a way that didn't mean what it feels like. It's almost like let's enhance it. Let's enhance the feeling good by the drinking and the thing. But it's almost the blindness to the full image. Like, I don't see the cycle of, if you enhance it now, you're going to feel worse later.
Right.
I almost don't see that because I have this this is very nice that I'm talking about this right now. Because I have this like dumb perspective of being indestructible. Of being like, normal people can smoke 3 bowls of weed and just completely be incoherent. But I'm just smoking weed every day and it's nothing. I feel fine. Mm-hmm. So within that feeling is where I forget the side effect. And when the side effect happens, I'm like, I'm depressed. I just need to sleep. And then you wake up the next day and repeat. And again, weed is easier than alcohol, which is a problem because it's also easier to abuse it throughout the day.
Easier how?
Alcohol, you at a certain point, if you abuse it, you'll go to bed. Like, the night will end, the day will end.
Right.
And you'll feel severe consequences the next day if you. And I've had these days. I'm not gonna say that I'm better than anyone else.
Yeah.
I had days where I would buy the bottle of vodka on Monday, and then on Wednesday I'm buying another one. Mm-hmm. So, but great. Like, at the end of it, I forgot my point.
I think, what you were saying reminded me that another thing for me is that I'm 35. I absolutely should have started getting really bad hangovers like anywhere between 5 and 10 years ago, based on how all of my friends, my peers have responded to it. But I just really don't get hungover. Or rather, it takes a lot for me to get hungover. And even I went to a friend's birthday party on Saturday, and it started in the afternoon. We were drinking and having a fun time all day. I was drinking for like 10 hours. And so I felt it the next day, but feeling it for me didn't mean pounding headache, can't get out of bed. It meant like, oh, I feel a little like zonked. I feel a little more emotional hangover than physical hangover. And that makes it also a little bit harder to say, oh, not going to do it today, because I know I likely will be okay tomorrow.
And I think there is like what I'm trying. One of my epiphanies this week was I used to be 240 pounds, and I stumbled upon the pictures of myself when I was 240 pounds. It's me sitting inside a room that used to be a bathroom, and I'm sitting there playing World of Warcraft.
How recently was it a bathroom?
That was like 15 years ago.
It's not like earlier today was a bathroom, but now it's my World of Warcraft dungeon.
Yes, that's how I want to MMORPG. Uh-huh. No, it was like when I moved to my mom's place, she didn't have a room, so she turned the bathroom into a room. So like literally my bed was the bathtub. Over it, we constructed like a wooden thing, and she put this and became a bed.
So the bathtub was still there?
The bathtub was still there. It had the toilet in it.
Could you accidentally knock the faucet and turn on the water in the middle of the night?
No, we had the main lines connected, but I was using all the soap, like the soap, you know, the things that you put the soap in?
Uh-huh.
I was using those to put my phone. Like it was convenient. I was smoking cigarettes all day, and my room had a fan in it that was taking the air out. Like who else would need anything more than that?
Right.
But like the theme here is, I feel, is that I would, in the time when things are easy, I would take them for granted and say I'll do it later, until the constraints of life come and it makes it even harder. Oh, if I could have started 2 weeks ago when things were easier, like now with exercise. I need to exercise because I'm afraid that my knees are going to fall off or like my... But if I don't exercise for 2 weeks, my knees are still fine. But when, like, I can't wait, and like what I do every time is I wait until things get really bad and then start having discipline and see like, oh, well, if I only used my time that I had in Egypt, if I only had used the time that I had when my health was better, if I only used the time I had when I was living with my mom for 11 years without paying rent or car insurance, I was like, oh, I'm comfortable. Let me stay. It's fine. Tomorrow will come. Another day will come.
Yeah.
And like I go back and forth and thinking is whether the fact that we feel invincible is a way for you to see the lesson. See, like you stayed invincible. You didn't get the same hindrance that normal people would have after a strong night of drinking, because they would quit.
Right.
But for you would stay like, no, it didn't affect me. I'm not hurt. I'm not going to quit now. But then balance will happen, and then things will get bad and you would have to quit, while normal people were still doing moderation.
Yes, it's definitely harder for me to be moderate with a lot of things. But drinking is definitely one of them. For whatever reason, I feel more in power over I have power over whether I can drink in moderation now more than I have in the past. But also part of that is just letting go and sometimes saying, you know what, tonight instead of the one drink that I said I was going to have, I might have 3 or 4. That's not going to, over the course of the night, you know, if I have 1 or 2 drinks with dinner, and then later on my girlfriend and I are watching Netflix's The Diplomat.
Shout out.
But this podcast is brought to you by Carrie Russell. Then I might have another drink or 2, and it's like that feeling much less like I have to stop and keep it to what exactly my plan was makes me feel like I'm able to be more moderate. Rather than like, okay, you know what? I'm going to have a nightcap every night during the week, but I'm only going to have 1 drink Monday through Friday. If I do that, then Saturday, I'm going crazy. I'm letting loose. And so That I talked to my therapist about this a lot. I think it's sort of the flip of what you're talking about, or maybe exactly the same thing. But like, I have things that will really help my mental health, routines that will make me feel like I'm not doing it right now, but like morning pages, like journaling type of stuff, meditating every day, exercising every day, whatever it is. I recognize that when I do them every day and I keep that routine, it makes me feel so much better.
Yes, but why can't you stick to it?
But until that point where there's one day where, oh shit, I have an early coffee with a friend. I can't do my morning pages today. Or, I forgot to meditate. And then it all falls apart. So it's not about not being able to stick to it for me. For me, it's about allowing myself to take a break from it and saying, it's not about the streak. It's not like Snapchat where it's like, 300 days. Or and a lot of these, like the meditation app I use does gamify this stuff. And that's because that's what gets us to do it. But it does make you feel like, Duolingo. If you're trying to learn a new language on Duolingo, it literally sends you a text that says, you made Duo sad. Duo is the owl mascot.
Oh my God.
And so what I'm working through right now is trying to use all of those things to help me, but not let them control me the way that they have in the past.
You're right. And like a lot of the problems OCD people have comes from this black and white thinking of it's either you fall in or you fall out. There is nothing in between. And a big challenge for me was to play the balance of, no, it's fine. You don't have to do like a complete sobriety thing. But for example, it shouldn't be at home. You know what I mean? Like if I'm going to do something fun outside, that's a different story than when I have it at home. It's the same. I have the same problem with ice cream. If there is ice cream in the fridge, it's going to be finished. If I'll take one and then two and then four, it's not really, you can see the pattern. It's not really about the X substance.
Right.
It's just the behavior of the marshmallow test of I can't stop.
Yeah.
It just more. If it didn't hit a certain mark, I would need to up the dosage. Oh, then I'll take another hit. Oh, I'll do another shot. I'll take another ice cream. So but it's very fascinating to me. I have the same dilemma of like either I become consistent, even if it's something light. Like a lot of times I feel that we overburden ourselves with what we need to stick to, and then you burn out.
Right.
But even when I do little, like even when I say, okay, I'm just going to do 5 push-ups, 5 minutes of meditation, just try to ease it. If I stick to it for 1 week, I need a day there is no rules. Like it's almost like I'm trying to make up for me staying disciplined. Then same tree of let's drink. Like, okay, I've been good and my reward is to be bad.
But that also might be because there is something to be said for just rest. And like, even if you're just doing 5 push-ups and meditating for 5 minutes, and that does feel like that's not a lot, but it's not like a negative thing to say, now I'm going to have a day where I do whatever I want. It's like, even having that tiny, I got to do 5 push-ups today, like that for me, like is it's sort of like looms large in my mind.
Yeah.
And so it's less about, my body needs to rest from doing 5 push-ups every day for a week, and more about my mind needs to rest from thinking you have something you have to do today. And so it's nice to just have a day where you don't have to do anything. And that's not bad, but I understand feeling that way.
And it's still hard. Still, like I'm now in a phase where I'm taking a break, and it's hard. I did not enjoy the break, and the break is over, and back to work. And I'm like, well, if I can only take 1 more day, and I know exactly what I'm gonna do in the one more day, exactly what I've done in the last week, which is a bunch of nothing, and worrying about the things I should do, and being dragged from one thing to another, like you said, like the line you said about, I'm gonna wake up and write my morning pages, but if the phone rings, my entire life is upside down.
Right.
Like there's no coming back to the schedule now.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's time for the other thing, and the other thing leads to the other thing. Today, like I almost had to, like a kid, like put marshmallows on the floor so that I can take the trash out. And that becomes very hard because I did comedy this week. So I can't do comedy and do the dishes?
Right.
One or the other? Do
Yeah.
you have the same?
Yeah, when things build up, it makes it much harder to do. Like I've been doing a lot of laundry recently because for weeks I just let the laundry pile up, and it was just the pile of clean clothes that I was pulling from, and then this is all wrinkly, da da da. And so now I'm in the okay. Once the hamper is half full, toss the load in. Try to make it as little of a thing as possible. I know that at some point that's going to go away. And I'm also doing dishes when I see the dishes need to be done immediately. But it's that same thing where it's like that needing to sort of like clear the boards is like looming large in my mind. And right now it's not completely overpowering me. Right now it's healthy. I know that at some point around the corner in a day, an hour, or a week, it's going to be too much. And then I'm going to let it all pile up again. And I think for me, part of it is just like saying, that's okay. I just read this book called 4,000 Weeks. And it is called 4,000 Weeks because 4,000 weeks is about 80 years. And so that's how many weeks we have roughly for a lot. Some people have more, some people have less, but you can assume that you will have about 4,000 weeks to live. And it's very much about, it is about time management, but I think the subtitle is like The Mortal's Guide to Time Management. And it's like something about just like, you have to just let some things, it's all about letting go basically.
Yeah.
And the crux of it is that once you're able to let go, then you're not spending so many of your 4,000 weeks figuring out how to optimize and do it all right. You're spending them doing the stuff that you can do.
I struggled with scarcity mentality and money, and I almost have the same thing with time. It's that, you saying 4,000 weeks, it literally makes it more of like, oh my God, there's so little. Like, what are we? That's basically one career. Like, how am I gonna figure my music career and my astronomy career? Like, how is that gonna happen? And again, that's the hard part for me is I know exactly what you're saying, but I also know myself. And I know how much time I waste, at least from that perspective. And the dichotomy of having both at the same time and forgiving myself is very challenging. Like I'm every single day I would wake up and be like, nope, something else needs to change. I have to take maybe if I shift my schedule to a different way and not worry about times. But you have to make money. You have to pay rent. You have to go to a show. You have to talk to people on the phone just for social things. Struggles. Wait, tell me about your OCD. Like, what is your OCD? What's the theme of your OCD?
Well, it's interesting because I got diagnosed when I was 11, and I have talked to therapists about it since then, but that was really when I did all my sort of talking specifically about an OCD diagnosis that person was giving me. And I was very, and I've written a lot of jokes about this, and so I'm going to try not to go into the joke while I'm telling it, but like the big things were, like locks, like there were the classics, I would check the locks on the front door. So like I had to check the doorknob, like twist lock to make sure that, and then I had to separately test the deadbolt. So unlock the doorknob, check the deadbolt, and see that the deadbolt worked. And then I had to try them together. But then now that I'm trying them together, I really only know that the knob is working. So let me unlock the knob again to check the deadbolt and like just keep going until my dad yelled at me to go to go to bed. And I don't know what or who I was scared would come in. I did have it almost just felt like I could see figures. Like I wasn't actually but like when I thought about it, I was imagining just sort of like shadowy figures. And I didn't know who or what they were, but I was like, they might come.
How old were you when you saw
like 10 or 11? And I wasn't hallucinating, but when somebody said, wait, Julian, what are you worried about? Who are you worried is going to come in right now? And I think it was basically that I was trying to think, and I couldn't actually picture anyone because there was no actual fear that anyone would come in. And so my brain was just kind of like doing its best to be like, here's some kind of them. And I'm like, who's them? I don't know. And I would not sleep with covers for a while because
Wait. Let's before we get into the covers. Is the locks thing still a thing now?
Not really. I got so good at not worrying about that, even when it was a thing that I felt worried about, that I think I'm almost like a little too lax about it. Like this morning, I walked out to find coffee, or I went out to get coffee, and I couldn't find my keys. My girlfriend was still sleeping. I left the door unlocked. Which, like, technically, you probably shouldn't leave the front door unlocked while a woman is sleeping in an apartment, completely unawares. But I do that, frankly, a lot.
Okay.
Or not a lot, but like, maybe once a month I can't find my key and I'm like, I'm going around the block. I'll be back.
Oh, so you didn't forget. Like this wasn't like, oh, I forgot to lock it.
No, I was just like, I can't find the key.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't think anybody's going to walk in. I'll be back in 15 minutes. And to some degree, that's rational to say, you know what? I don't think there's going to be a break-in right here. And I'm literally going a 5-minute walk away. But it's also a little bit negligent. And it's definitely not something I would have done back then. Partially because I was 10 and I didn't have a girlfriend. But I would have been like so fixated on it.
Yeah.
So there are still things that, like, I'll think about, oh shit, did I leave a burner on?
Wait. So, again, the part where you got over, you're still lax about it. Like you going from, I need to make sure that the deadbolt is locked, so I'll unlock the other key and test it on its own.
Right.
To going to, hey, my girlfriend is sleeping, I'm going to leave the key and leave. That's a huge transformation. You can just say that in one sentence and move to the next topic.
Right. Okay. I mean, also that, so
like, was that with therapy?
That's over 25 years. Yes, it was therapy. I saw a therapist when I was 11 and I was prescribed Zoloft, which I was on for, I don't remember how long, but I think less than a year. Like it was not super, super long. And I think that helped. And I know that a lot of people have trouble with being, like, very legitimate difficulties with being over medicated as a child. And I think I got lucky in that it was being used for this specific thing in the specific time where that thing was really bad. Like I had always been an anxious child, and that it just felt like that had gotten much worse.
Yeah. Again, OCD is just the cherry on top of the cake of anxiety. Like it's really, you wouldn't have the cherry without the cake.
Right.
So I'm glad you got something for anxiety, because any other issues that might have appeared with it, like ADHD or depression or anything else, fixing the anxiety first would have been the right, even if it just took your level down from like red alert down to orange threat.
Yeah.
You were the therapist can work with you.
Right.
Easier than before.
And I think that's what it did. And I'm not going away from that because I think this is the same thing, but like my most recent, like, really big, like, OCD flare up was around air travel. And I've gone back and forth about, like, being totally chill with air travel and being, like, in college when whenever I would fly home from college, I would call my grandparents right before I got on the plane because I was like, I'm going to die in this plane crash. Let me say I love you one more time. Okay. But it was also so casual because I think I also was just like, I've lived this life of fear for so long. I just have to go along with this reality that everyone else believes in, even though I know in my heart it's not real. And their reality, the outside reality is real, not the fear reality. But in that moment, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to die on this plane. Might as well say I love you to my grandparents one more time. And it hadn't been that bad in my adult life. And then a few years ago, it was like, I was like 27, 28, a ton of friends' weddings were happening. So I was flying all the time. And I just like had like 3 or 4 flights in a row that were very turbulent, and it just changed something in me. And I had a friend's wedding in the UK. And for like 3 or 4 months before that flight, I would spend hours a day having panic attacks thinking about how my plane's going to go down over the ocean if it doesn't, if I make it to the UK and I survive, then I'm definitely on the way back. Of
course.
Like I have a 0% chance of survival. And
it's almost like you're trying to find what's going to scare you in the situation, not that the situation scares you. You know what I mean? Like it's almost the brain is backwards.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, what's going to scare me in this? And then you find it. And then you're like, then this, let's fixate on this. As opposed to normal people where they're like, nothing, not afraid. And then an incident happens that scares them.
Right.
So it's like almost the cause and effect is reversed for us.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it. And I think that, I mean, it's the obsessive side of it also. It's because like I would read about, I think it was also the Ethiopia Airlines crash that happened in like 2018 or whatever.
I've never heard of.
It was I could go too in depth about it because I read a bunch about it, but there were two basically like, we don't know why these crashes happened. They were new planes, and it turns out that there was some sort of misunderstanding of how like new pilots were being trained on this new technology and they were pulling up when they should have just been letting the plane do its thing.
I heard of that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I just thought about those. I just found that so terrifying, and there's some narcissism also in it, and being like, air travel is the most safe mode of transportation, but I'm going to be the one who dies in a crash.
Yeah.
And so basically my doctor after COVID, which the only real positive for COVID for me was that, or like the silver lining was that I didn't have to worry about air travel in the future. And so for whatever, a year and a half, I was like, oh, I'm not, who knows? I might never have to fly again. And that was really nice. And so when things were opening back up, I talked to my doctor. He prescribed me what my friends who are doctors have told me is probably a placebo level amount of Ativan, just like the tiniest possible amount. And I started taking that whenever I fly, and it has completely, like, I still have friends who will like check in on me. Like I went to a wedding a couple months ago, and a friend it was at Santa Fe, so it's like a windy landing. And he was on a flight a couple hours before, and he was like, apparently he was like talking to his wife, like, should I tell Julian it was like bumpy? And like, he was like worried. I was like, people are worrying about my worrying. That's hilarious. And I appreciate that, but I also do feel it was really, really bad. Like 2018 to 2020, whatever, my flying anxiety was probably one of the most debilitating anxieties I've ever felt. And now it's like, I get a little bit nervous, but I'm going to my cousin's wedding this weekend. I'm not thinking about that right now.
Okay.
And even when I get on the plane, I won't be worried.
And if you got nervous, you go through the routine of, as if you're calling your grandma, you just call the people you're going to and tell them the plane is going to crash, or is it still less than that now?
I never told my grandma the plane's going to crash. I was just saying, because I think that would have worried her. No, it's sort of the same thing with the locks, where I'm like, there is probably a part of me that still feels that way, but I'm able to overpower it with logic more than I was able to before. Like I've got, it's like the two wolves meme. Like I've got the one wolf inside me that is sure that the plane is going to go down, and the other one is like allowing him. And also it goes back to the letting myself let loose, or letting yourself rest, is like, let myself worry rather than trying to stop the worry.
Yeah.
And know that I have had these worries. I've been sure that it's going to happen, and it hasn't happened. So if I'm sure it's going to happen now, I can't trust that person, because that person was sure that so many other planes were going to go down, and they didn't go down.
My new motto with OCD is, it's not true now. Like whatever is scaring you, I tell myself, it's not true now. Like right now, the plane, it didn't crash.
Right.
I'm in the plane right now and it's fine.
Yeah.
Like one of my OCDs is that I'm going to get into a horrific accident and I'll be paralyzed. I will never move again.
Yeah.
And I would think about it, like, what accident is going to make this?
Right.
What is it? Is it me slipping on a kitchen? Is it me while a car? What? And I'm not going to go outside now because I'm afraid something is going to happen if I get into the car. But I tell myself, it's not true now.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it will suck if it happened, but it's not true now. So I can't be paralyzed by what didn't happen yet.
Right. We're these very bad psychics. We're these psychics who are very confident that we know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
And yet we have an almost 0% success rate.
And we, like you said, logic, right? So the logic that is in your head is true 100%, but you also ignore the logic of look at how many people are getting into the planes. Look at how many flights went through and nothing fell. But it's almost, you don't want to focus on this because you're scanning for the fears.
Right.
A lot of times I would wake up, you have OCD of multiple themes, so you'd know exactly what I'm talking about, is that you wake up in the morning and then you have the feeling of anxiety and OCD, and then you start looking for what is it? What happened yesterday that is making me feel this way? And then when I find it, I'm like, oh, it's this. Rumination. It's again, it's like the ice cream.
Yeah.
It's the same idea. It's, you know, you're going to take the ice cream. The cycle of guilt that comes with it is also, it's very parallel to what's happened with OCD.
And I think that's the sort of what you were talking about with like, I'm going to ruin it, or like not the, but that feeling of like, oh, I feel great right now. There is that sense of like, oh, I feel so good right now. I must be forgetting something. Let me think about what I'm missing.
Oh, that's so true.
And it's probably out of, from a place of like, let me make sure that I'm still on top of stuff. But it really is, you're looking for what's the thing that I'm going to worry about that I didn't need to worry about.
And what is it like if you're not on top of things? What does that mean? Like, how does, for me, sometimes I'm not on top of my stuff and again, it's a struggle to not take it to that to that darkness. But a lot of times I'm like, it takes onto my self-worth. I'm like, yeah, but you're not taking care of this. You didn't take out the trash. Like, look at this. It's kind of, the dishes are here. And it almost the same way, like you were telling me, when you have a thing to do, you carry it. And the burden of carrying it becomes so exhausting that after you do it, you're like, I need a break. My brain needs to break off of this. It's almost the same, like I almost feel the same way of that. I would carry the burden of the thing, even though it's so small. And that becomes the exhausting part.
Yes.
And I don't know if you have any tricks for this, but like that's one of my biggest struggles right now, is how to reduce the weight of dishes on my life. Like it feels, today I looked at my AC and I was like, oh my God, winter is coming. I need to clean the air filter. And like, I was like, oh, when will death come? Like, when do I have time to put soap in my soap dispensers? Are you crazy? Who have time for this?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if that's ADHD or if OCD or what exactly.
I mean, I do have those things where they snowball, where it's one tiny thing where it's like, oh, I got to text that person back. And it's a silly little text. But if I wait too long, then I'm like, oh, now I have to sort of apologize when I text them back. So now I have to think about how I'm going to text them, and then I'm spending so much time on that I forget to, but I know, oh, I have to do this other thing, I have to respond to this email, and part of it is just saying do the bad version, and doing the bad version can mean send a text without the apology, or take 30 seconds to write the text and force yourself to send it, or do one dish. Like doing one dish is the bad version of doing dishes, and that for me tends to sort of at least neutralize, if not reverse, the momentum, so that I'm like, oh yeah, that was easy. I could do one more. Or I'll do another one tomorrow.
I'm trying the timer method right now, which is I bought a timer, physical timer, that I would put out and be like, I'm going to do dishes for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Bam. 2 minutes, whatever dishes in my hand is done, I put it. I'm done. I move away and do something else. But like you said, I wake up every day with the best intentions. Like, I'm going to do the dishes from 9:50 to 9:52.
Right.
And blah, blah, blah. Then somebody calls me and then here I am.
But is the timer method helping?
It's a little better because my feeling of time is not right. Like, I don't value, if time was money, I'm rich. I'm rich and I don't have any idea that there are poor people. I'm like, yeah, here's 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, an hour here, who cares?
Yeah.
And then I would realize, oh my God, I have to be somewhere now. And then I'm so poor. I have no time in the world to even like fix my hat or like tie my shoes. I'm like, run. And really trying to balance that in my life, which is my biggest challenge. Like,
yeah.
I think, do you believe in reincarnation?
I think it would be pretty cool, but I don't. Even that question, I should be able to just say no. But if I feel like then I started to say, well, I don't really, what's belief? Because I'm like, I want it to be true. And maybe if I say yes, even though I don't feel in my bones that it's true, maybe that'll make it more true, possibly. And it's not bothering me to not be able to answer that, but that does feel like I'm like, oh, I need the real truest possible answer that tends towards making that a reality if possible.
That is so black and white that there is no, you can't have a wrong answer.
Right.
You have to have the right answer that aligns to the Julian methods and values.
Yeah. So did I answer your question?
You did.
No,
You did.
I guess I don't.
No,
Yeah.
you did. I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because I grew up religious. Islam doesn't have reincarnation stated outright, but like the idea came to us from India, from other cultures, and it almost I treat it like positive thinking. I'm like, yeah, that would be nice. But then I dismissed it the same way. Like, oh no, we want to live in reality. Why would we be here and living this role in such belief if there is another life? But then I've been on this weird journey that took me through like ancient teachings and religions, and I almost found myself back to that same idea of reincarnation and hearing about people talking about past life regressions. Have you heard of those before?
I have. I don't totally know what they are. It's like they like do a reading to figure out what your past lives were.
Due to a glitch in the matrix, you'd see it a lot in kids. Kids would remember what happened to them before they die. And they would tell their parents, he's like, yo, before I was born, this happened. And there's books on this. This is not like, it's almost to the way like there's so much evidence that I'm very surprised that reincarnation is not a thing that we all talk about. But I went down that path and I read into it. And my motto in life is, if you read from different sources and they're saying the same thing, then it's probably true. The idea of that before we come here, we choose every single detail of this life has been said in people who are talking about past life regressions. You choose your parents, you choose the people that annoys you, you choose the people that cuts you off, you chose your OCD. And I don't know why, but that was so freeing. Because it almost everything that annoyed me, I was like, oh, I chose this. OCD taught me so much things about myself. Like I had one of my OCDs is something called SO-OCD, sexual orientation OCD. Never had a gay encounter in my life, but then suddenly I'm like, but what if after all of this, you were gay? How would you know? And the first time that thought came to my mind and I believed it, panic attack. What does that mean? What does that mean about, but I've only fell for girls my entire life. Was this all a lie? And the doubt came from a place where now after 3 years of OCD, I learned, no, my problem was that I was not allowing feminine energy into my personality. I grew in a Middle Easterner, masculine, patriarchal society where if you wear a pink shirt, you're gay, 100%. What do you mean? You pink shirt, done. Takes it up, yes, we can tell. So I didn't learn that, no, everything is male, everything is masculine and feminine. Everything is equal, not equal parts, but you have both in you.
Right.
You can't say this is it, and I'm just going to do the masculinity part and the femininity is for girls. No, that's not right. And that's also making my version of masculinity a bit rigid. I never assaulted anyone. I never did anything sexually to anyone without their consent. But at the same time, I still carry this, that being masculine is disgusting. Your feelings are not allowed to be expressed because you're horny and disgusting. And so it's both. Like it ruined my view of masculinity and made me deny my any femininity in my life. Even if it was, oh my God, one time I did this, gay. So, and again, understanding that OCD attacks what you care about. If it attacked something I don't care about, then yeah, you would just flip over and do the thing that it wants and you won't care.
Right.
But I think that came to me for a reason. Like if reincarnation is real and we chose everything to learn something, then really that's a very good way to learn. Security, for example, in your case, like for bad things will happen, or you can't control the skies, you can't control the turbulence.
Right.
It's a control issue, and a lot of a lot of OCD stems from control issues. You're trying to control, and that was my favorite line that I would tell to my psychiatrist. I would tell her, like, if you just let me rearrange all the molecules in the universe, we're going to have a great time. Just let me remake this because I want to control everything.
Mm-hmm. And that's it. That it sounds like the whole idea, which I hadn't heard that version of reincarnation. That I had heard the version of like, you know, if you're good, you get a better life next time. If you're bad, you get a worse life. But I really like this idea that we're all just beings who are continuing to sort of build experiences for ourselves to try to become more enlightened. That's really cool. And it gives you that sort of gives you that control because you are then rearranging all the molecules in the universe.
And you chose to struggle with what you're struggling with to learn from it. And the karma, like the karma is still there, like, but it's not as black and white punishment. It's like almost balance as well. It's you in this life, you've been good. Okay, we're going to make things easier for you here so you can learn something else.
It's like planning a workout kind of.
Yeah, but there's no supervisor. Like they help you make choices, but at the same time, you knowing yourself, like the higher self stuff, the stuff that you know, yeah, Julian should have worked on this. Julian should have done this. It's almost that's the person that designed your life. And it's like, it applies to so many things. Death. Somebody died, yeah, they finished what they came to learn and they left. We'll see them again, bye.
Right.
Disease. You'd hear people talking about how they chose to have cancer because they wanted to feel or to learn a certain something. You can't know right now, but it just makes it that, oh, this is my doing. There is no why God why. No, your God why. Why? Which made me crazy a lot of times because you're walking around the house and you're like, I chose this? I chose my parents. Are you crazy? That's dumb. What is you? I give you to homework an hour before the show and I was like, here's 2 questions. You would, one of them was, what have you learned lately? Like, have you had... For me, the resurrection, the reincarnation stuff was an epiphany. Do you have a similar something that you discovered lately?
I think reading that 4,000 Weeks book was really, really an epiphany for me of just because it's all stuff that you know, or that we all know, and that we all sort of talk about all the time, but really just like setting it out as like this is because you understand. What a week, like we feel a week almost more than we feel days, I think, because days are often different for the most part. A week, even if you're not working or even if you're in a different place, you can sort of feel there's the weekend, there's the end of the week, there's the week, and 80 is such a perceivable amount, or not 80, 4,000 is such a perceivable amount, whereas like 80 is also. But like you don't totally feel a year. I feel like I understand what a week is so much. And 4,000, it's that whole like 4,000. Every time I've told somebody that figure, they've been like, "Oh my God, I thought it would be like 100,000." And so it,
because it feels like what, like 52 weeks is a year. So you're like 4,000 of those. That should sound more than 80.
Right. But it does the math, as they say. And I think that really has helped me just not try because I was really past couple of years, I was in my sort of trying to optimize everything phase. And I felt like I could learn myself at some point where I wouldn't be able to be as effective at something as like, I don't know, my friend, well, I just talked to him yesterday, so I was thinking about him, but my friend Eric, we went to college together, we were roommates, he went to business school. I'm sure he has his own things that I'm better at than he is, but it does feel like he can be very efficient at like doing what he wants to do. Or my friend Ben, who's a poet, but he is so aligned with, and again, he has his own challenges, but he is so aligned with what, like when he wants to do something, that also happens to be the thing that's going to make him feel good. Whereas I'm like, ooh, I want to watch TV for 2 hours right now, but that's not the other thing that's going to make me feel good. And so I've always felt like I'm not going to be as optimized as those people can be because it's not natural to me, but I can get what my version of optimized is, and realizing that like that doesn't actually exist because it's a constant moving target. And I think it's true for everyone. It's probably the people who are better at that have always known that or learned that earlier. And just letting myself let things pile up, and then instead of saying, oh God, why have I let things pile up? Say, okay, I let things pile up. That's what I needed at that time. Here, what did I let things pile up. And while I was letting things pile up, I was able to do all this. Or I wasn't able to do anything because I was extremely depressed and I needed that time. And so thank you, pile, for allowing me to have that time. Now I'm going to work on you now that I do have the space for that.
I love that. And how do you like, I love this attitude a lot, but I feel a little bit interferes with there's only 4,000 weeks. There's only 4,000 weeks. Like, how do you, when you put the 4,000 weeks way of thinking into, combine it with that way of thinking, what does that look like?
I think they're one and the same, because I get what you're saying, that there is if you're facing a scarcity, how can you allow things to go with the flow? And for me, I'm in a weird way at an advantage because and probably you also, I spend so much of my time, I waste so much of my time trying to figure out what the right thing to do is, and not actually trying to figure out makes it sound like, okay, I'm doing a pros and cons list. I'm actually thinking about this. But what I'm actually doing is sitting in paralysis and not moving forward at all. And so by just letting the pile up and then say, okay, now that I have the room, for either because, I was writing a lot this week, so I let these things, or because I was really depressed this week, so I couldn't do anything. Now that rather than say, oh God, why did I let that happen? How can I figure out in the future to do this and do this? I'm just letting myself move on to the next thing. And so by being able to go with the flow a little bit more and move between those two spaces, I'm giving myself so much more time within those 4,000 weeks than I would have had before. Yeah.
Because out of the 4,000 weeks in the way we were running them, there will be at least 1,500 weeks lost in just what to do next.
Yeah.
Should I do the laundry, or should I do the dishes, or should I do the trash, or should I write? Like, that's, you're right. It's just going to cut down of all of that uncertainty.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, do you have anything to, first of all, how can people find you?
Julian M. Stern on Instagram and TikTok. Oh, I'm there we go. I was looking at the camera. Julian M. Stern on Instagram and TikTok. And I have a weekly newsletter called the Sternal Journal. It's on Substack, sternaljournal.substack.com. You can find all my shows there, and I write little essays and do interviews sometime. And I've done it every week for 3 or 4 years, so it's not going away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Julian, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me, Sam.
This podcast had an ending, so we end. Bye.